2004. How did the development team envision the living world of Azeroth growing and evolving?
Yeah, I could take this. So, we've been thinking about Azeroth as a living world for since the beginning, and a living world can kind of mean a lot of different things. I think like first it means the world is changing, and that can be from like a minute to minute, hour to hour basis when you're looking at things that were in the very first version of the game.
Hey, hi, welcome. So in my last video, I talked about my Perfect Classic Plus and we talked about the zones in the Eastern Kingdom. In today's video, I'm going to be covering Kalimdor. And as per usual, I'm going to keep to the same 3 core pillar designs for my Perfect Classic Plus. Those pillar designs being preservation, expansion, and perspective. And if you enjoy me making this kind of content, grabbing these Classic Plus ideas and showing you my Perfect Classic Plus, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And now, let's get into the video. My Perfect Classic Plus, Part 3, The Zones of Kalimdor. Let's get into it. First up on our list is going to be Mount Hyel. Following the Battle of Mount Hyel, the region is left scarred. Nature is unraveling, with dream portals leaking corruption. Ragnaros' defeat forces stirred deep beneath the soil, threatening to ignite the mountain once again. Mount Hyel is one of those areas that has been long waited for in any form of Classic Plus. But what would be the motivation for us being here? Perhaps stop a second elemental catastrophe and understand why nature's balance is in disarray. We can even do some of the Emerald Nightmare stuff, foreshadowing that and seeing what's going on with Xavius in the background. Mount Hyel is also a really good place to be able to, let's say, tell some lore about the Harpies and Aviana. How about let's talk about how this can tie into the whole thing. What about leads us into the Emerald Nightmare storyline with the Legion and foreshadowing Ragnaros' return in Cataclysm. Early signs of Xavius meddling are found in corrupted groves. What about the stories of Aviana, which has also been known to be connected with druids? And it's not just my opinion alone. Hyel is one of the most requested of all the zones to be actually created in classic World of Warcraft. Perhaps even have a Timbermaw raid. We haven't seen much of the Timbermaw, and their story is not that long when it comes to the entirety of World of Warcraft history. Why not dive into it a little bit further in Mount Hyel? Next on my list would actually be the Ashara Crater, but I would like it expanded, and it could be revolved around the Naga Rising, the legacy of Ashara and Illidan's past. There's not a lot of people that actually play the game that know that Illidan and Ashara actually had a past together. This would be a great way to actually flesh that out. Perhaps some lore like the Sea Council ruins from the War Within, where Queen Ashara made her pact with the old gods. Her followers now return to retrieve relics, some created by Illidan during his betrayal of both Night Elves and demons. The clash of their legacies bubbles to the surface, reigniting ancient rivalries. Some of the motivations going into this could be we unearth the long-buried consequences of Ashara and Illidan's actions before they reshape the world again. Some of the tie-ins could be the connections with Nazjatar, for example, Illidan's future rise to Outland, and Ashara's ultimate destiny. Echoes of their former alliance and mutual betrayal play out through shadowy artifacts and sunken vaults. Perhaps we can learn more about the Illidari through lost relics and their truths. Find out more about Illidan. That way we could see his motivations even going so far as into Legion and Outlands combined. Or we can turn it into a highborn battleground, for example. There's many things that could be done with this piece of land that was never finished. I think it's time for us to finish it. Anyways, let's get to the next one. And that being Oldm. Oldm is a desert of ancient Titan secrets and treasures. Yet the Burning Legion and the Twilight Hammer are hunting down these artifacts for their own ends. What was once a peaceful desert has become a battleground over the control of Titan knowledge. and only those with the courage to explore the runes can prevent a cataclysmic event. Oldham has always been in Classic. It's just been behind a wall, like Gilneas, for example, or like Quel'Thalas. We're never able to access it, and I think this is about time we finally see that what happened with Oldham prior to Deathwing. For example, has Oldham always looked like that, or did Deathwing actually cause that when he shattered our world? We can have Burning Legion remnants and Twilight Hammer seeking out artifacts in the sand, see what's going on with the Twilight Hammer prior to, once again, the Cataclysm. How about what is the Burning Crusades effects happening in Oldham as the time of the Burning Crusade? And we can tie this in with Ulduar and Wrath of the Lich King, as well as Allagan and the connection with the Titans. We can learn Titans as early as this possible time, and even be able to foreshadow what be happening in retail. For example, I believe the last one's called The Last Titan. What if this is like a hint to what that is? What about the rise of Sargeras and the Legion's play heavily into the future lore? The best part about my version of Classic Plus and the third core pillar, which is perspective, these are all things that could be seen and accounted for later on. You have the ability of foresight. You know where it could go. So why not add additions to kind of tell that story along its way without ever having to leave Azeroth? Maybe not the entire story. Maybe that will actually might want people to go play retail, for example, to see what's going on with the Titans, or play the Legion Classic whenever that's a thing, and be able to see what goes on with Sargeras, or Wrath of the Lich King with Ulduar. That's the best part about this. It can tell those stories prior to those expansions ever being there. And it can even tell more of the story of what's going on there as if time is passing. Speaking of time passing, let's talk about our next area, the Caverns of Time. If you did not see this one coming, I don't know what to tell you, unfortunately. My biggest difference is, what kind of stories are we going to tell here in the Caverns of Time? This can also play really heavily into perspective. So how about following the exodus of Azeroth's greatest champions to Outland and Northrend? Ripples echo across time. The Caverns of Time become unstable as the absence of these key figures create paradoxes. And our motivation could be safeguarding the timeline, preventing these paradoxes from unraveling history, and better understand the cost of leaving Azeroth vulnerable. In my perfect Caverns of Time, it's more about telling those stories that we're missing out on when it comes to Wrath of the Lich King, Burning Crusade, Legion, hell, any of those can be as far as the wildest imagination. We have over 20 years, 2 decades of foresight being able to tell those stories and make those actual events into dungeons in the Caverns of Time. Instead of reliving the events that we've already have done, let's say in the Burning Crusade. Perhaps we can even have quest lines where we see what would happen if the Wrath Gate went a different way, or what happened with Outlands and beyond. It would be a great way to tell another side of the story of what happens if these heroes fail. Caverns of Time really has endless possibilities of what you can do with it. But in my perfect version, because we're not actually leaving to go to Northrend, nor are we going through the portal to Outlands, it would still be nice to know what's going on there via the Caverns of Time, and what could or could not happen, for example. But let's move on to something entirely new, and that's the Isles of Drathon. This area would be south of the Stranglethorn coast. A forgotten island used by the Trathi now lies cursed. Trolls experiment with blood rituals that blend Loa magic and necromancy, twisting the spirits and the jungle itself. For those who don't know what the Drakari trolls are, those are the ones that are in Drathon Keep in Northrend. The undead trolls, or dead trolls. I kind of forget which one it is. We can even have some of the motivations being stop a ritual that binds the Loa to undeath and cover the truth behind troll blood rituals. We can tie it in with prepare the player for Northrend's Drakari and the troll necromancer themes that are there. Tease undead experimentations later seen in Icecrown and explore more of that. And this would be a really great way to introduce what's going on and maybe the pacts between the Lich King himself and the leaders of the Chakari. And can we all say a little bit of whispers of Bonzwambi, maybe? Even learn about such things as the Shadowlands, for example, even though that was the that was the expansion that did it for me, and I quit retail ever since, but it still was a thing, and we can tie it in. But that was my video, guys, on the 5 big areas that I would change in the Kalimdor area. If you want to see more stuff like this, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know, what would you have done different? There's a lot of places I obviously would have covered, but I can even add that for a later video, for example. These are just ones that I thought the lore would actually fit, and maybe some new things that people didn't even expect. If you have any cool ideas, feel free to hit me up on Discord. My Discord's linked in the description. Feel free to go on there, send me a DM of what your favorite classic WoW, what things that you would like to add. I think my next video, I might want to do something around the actual mechanics of the game instead of just the zones. Maybe some quality of life or something along those lines. Perhaps what would I take from SOD and bring it to Classic Plus? And I already know everybody's Classic Plus will be different from my Classic Plus. But make a video and then send it to me, and then I'll watch it and we can agree or disagree on things. Anyways, have yourselves a good one, guys. Peace.